Okie dokie, darlings. So hopefully you followed the instructions to do your attendance, no mail today, and you did your mugshot Monday. Hopefully you're all done with that so we can go over it. If not, I need the substitute to pause the video right now and then hit play when everybody has their sentences done and they're ready to rock and roll. Okay, let's go ahead and proceed. So we are on week 4 for Mugshot Monday. And if we look at the sentence, it reads, to entice a kitten off the roof, Roberto opened a tin of tuna fish. Immediately, the kitten leapt for the treat and landed at Roberto's feet. So let's go ahead and look at this sentence together. That's high enough. Here we go. So we need a comma after roof. We also need to put a period after fish. And then capitalize the I on immediately because, there's a natural pause there anyway when you're reading the sentence. To entice a kitten off the roof, we pause there naturally, so we insert a comma. Roberto opened a tin of tuna fish, period. If we wouldn't have that period there, it would be a run-on. So we start with immediately, and there, again, is a natural pause. Immediately, comma. The kitten, it should be leaped for the treat, so let's just put SP and circle it above it because we don't want leapt. For the treat and landed at Roberto's feet. Whose feet? Roberto's. So we put an apostrophe before the S. If you need to, go ahead and pause this video until everybody has their sentence corrected the right way down in the bottom box. If not, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Our next sentence says, Shreya, what a name, right? Shreya hasn't paid her school library fine. Consequently, she can't neither lend more books or receive her report card. This is a hot mess. We got a lot to fix in this one. So we have Shreya hasn't. Since it's a contraction, we need an apostrophe between the N and the T. It's not library, although my little niece says library. It's library. So put SP and circle it above that because that's spelled incorrectly. And then I put in a semicolon. You could, after the word fine, put in a period and start the sentence anew. But I like putting in semicolons sometimes when the two sentences have to do with the same content. So instead of putting a period and starting a new sentence, you can just insert a semicolon. And a semicolon looks like a dot with a comma underneath of it. So consequently, again, there's that natural pause. We put a comma after consequently. She can't neither. Can't and neither are two negatives, and you can't have a double negative. It doesn't make sense. So let's go ahead and take out neither. And when we delete something, we use the delete loop-de-loo, remember? So I deleted neither, and it's not lend. She is not lending the books. The library is. So we take out lend and insert borrow. More books or receive. Receive is incorrectly spelt because it's I before E except after C. So we would need to flip those two letters. So we can put SP above receive and circle it. And then we need a period at the end of the sentence. Feel free to go ahead and pause the video right here until you're ready to move on to the next thing and everybody has the sentences corrected. Okie dokie. So we have Mugshot Monday done. We were working on a certain content last week. Does anybody remember what we were learning about? Yes, even though I'm not there, I still need you to remember. So if you do, please raise your hand. Don't worry, I'll wait. Okay, really hoping someone raised their hand and shared that we were learning about foreshadowing and possibly maybe they said irony. Now, what I want you to do right now is to discuss with your tables how irony relates to foreshadowing. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Go ahead and pause the video substitute right now until everybody has discussed. Okay, everybody has discussed how irony and foreshadowing relates. So, how do they? Anybody want to share a whole group? You know what, substitute? Let's go ahead and call on somebody who's sitting in the comfy chairs. Take your pick. There's victims everywhere. Go for it. I am hoping that you answered something along the lines with foreshadowing relates to dramatic irony and the way that foreshadowing creates dramatic irony. Remember, foreshadowing are the clues or the hints about what is to happen in the future. And dramatic irony is when the audience knows something that the characters don't. So when we think about the movie Jaws, how we watched that last week, that theme song, bum, 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 anytime those two notes are played, it is the theme song and it's signaling what's going to happen, that a shark attack is going to happen. So the dramatic irony is we know that a shark is going to attack. The characters do not know, but we know that. And how do we know that? Through the clues, the foreshadowing, the theme song. We also had people kind of doing fake out shark scenes. Remember the girl was screaming at the start of the clip? We had all kinds of clues. We also did the video clip of When a Stranger Calls. You guys weren't scared at all, remember? Yes, you were. Go check out the Facebook page if you need a reminder. So anyway, foreshadowing, the clues that lead up to dramatic irony. It creates that dramatic irony. Hopefully that you're getting a better grasp on that. We can just kind of test that and see how it's going to work today. So we are going to do our first writing piece by Edgar Allan Poe today. I love Edgar Allan Poe. He was a very kind of demented man. His personal life, we'll kind of talk about it later on. It was a little bit different. I mean, even his death was even creepy. But all his writings have a certain tone and create kind of an uneasy feeling for a mood for the readers. His writings are very kind of morbid. Sometimes they're gory. And it's just like, who in the world thinks of this? Huh, oh, Edgar does. Edgar Allan Poe is also on the wall, on our pink wall. If you go ahead and you look where it says, it's Poe, bro. Yeah, that's Edgar Allan Poe. Even though he was really creepy, he was extremely talented to be able to write so many successful stories. And the fact that people just gravitate to them because they're so interesting and they weird people out, that's a talent. If any of you guys can creep each other out, maybe that's talent too. So bravo to you. Brush that dirt off your shoulder. So let's go ahead and we are going to listen to the story called The Telltale Heart. I need you to open up to your mini lessons from last week. It should be clipped in the front of your binder, so go ahead and get that out. Hopefully you have it out. Okay, we were looking at the different movie clips. Well, instead of a movie clip this time, we're going to read A Telltale Heart. But I like us to listen to the story because I feel that we can really get into the emotion that the writer was trying to convey. If at any time during this story you get confused or you have a question, have the substitute pause the video and ask Mrs. Leftwich or the substitute, and I'm sure they'll help you with anything that they possibly can. And we can talk about it more tomorrow. But what I want you to do is in this story, I want you to write down every piece of foreshadowing that you come across. If you run out of room, use the side of the page of the mini lesson. It doesn't matter. Because I know that you ran out of room when it came to the movie clip of When a Stranger Calls. So we're listening to A Telltale Heart. It's creepy, it's disturbing, and I love it. You're writing down the foreshadowings that are in this story. And remember, there is something that you're going to know that the other characters don't know. And I think it might be, probably 5 minutes into the story, something will happen, and only you know and one of the other characters know this event took place. The other characters in the neighborhood will have no clue. That's the dramatic irony. So what you're writing down are the pieces of foreshadowing, the clues leading up to this. Okay, enjoy Edgar Allan Poe.
Chilling tales for dark nights. The Telltale Heart, written by Edgar Allan Poe, performed by David Alnwick, featuring Jesse Cornett, audio production, sound design, and original score by Luke Hodgkinson.
True, nervous, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. how then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me, he had never given me insult. But for his gold, I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Mad men know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head in, within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern, cautiously, oh so cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray of light fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept.
I appreciate your concern.
Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watcher's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close fastened, through fear of robbers. And so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening, just as I have done. night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh no, it was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise when he turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It's nothing but the wind in the chimney. It's only a mouse crossing the floor, or it is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found all in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern, so I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a simple dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot out from the crevice and fell full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open. I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow of my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern, motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now at the dead hour of night, amidst the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there for many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, You will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out. No stain of any kind, no blood spot whatsoever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught it all. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men, who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled. For what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definiteness until, at length, I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath. And yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh, God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore, I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chattered pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought and this I think, but anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, hark, louder, 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 louder! Villains! I shrieked. Dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks here. Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart!
Okay, what did you think? Some of you are probably creeped out, and that's good, because that means Edgar did his job. He loves to creep his audiences out. And don't worry, we will be in a very strong relationship with him all year long, because I like his stories, and I think you will too, so we'll read more. But we need to go ahead and talk about a few things. So right now, I want you to think about the dramatic irony and the foreshadowing. What was the dramatic irony in the story? Substitute, please pause the video right now and have some of the students share their thoughts, and then go ahead and hit play and I'll tell you the answer. So you're sharing what was the dramatic irony in the story. Okay, so hopefully one of you shared this, that the dramatic irony, there we go, this will work better. The dramatic irony was that the narrator killed the old man. We knew that he was going to from the very beginning. And then we also know when he did it. Oh, what do you think about the part when he dismembered the corpse, it said? And he did it in the bathtub. That's why he thought he was so brilliant and so genius, that he dismembered the corpse in the bathtub. And he said now all the mess was contained in the tub, so he just had to wash it down the drain. He was bragging a little bit, but it was kind of smart. And then he took all the body parts and he hid them underneath the floorboards. Anyway, that's beside the point. The irony was that we knew that he killed the old man, and we knew that he was going to kill the old man from the very beginning. The rest of the people in the story did not. The only one who knew was, well, the old man once he totally got attacked and killed, and then the narrator himself. But I mean, the cops came, and did they know? No, they didn't. So that's the dramatic irony. How did we know that was going to happen? Well, that's where foreshadowing comes in. So what I'd like you to do right now is to share with your tables the different things you found to be the foreshadowing in the story. If you have something your neighbor doesn't have, then I would like you to add it to your list. And then once everybody's shared, go ahead and hit play, and we'll see if we came up with some of the same things. You should have shared with your table by now. And some of the things, and I don't have them all listed, I just listed a few, so you could have found probably definitely more. But some of the ones that I found, that you probably found as well, hopefully, was number one, the heartbeat. The fact that he kept hearing the old man's heartbeat, I mean, it was totally his conscience. And he was going a little crazy. He kept questioning, am I mad? Yeah, I think so. So the heartbeat, the fact that he kept hearing it even after the man was dead. The old man's eye bothered the narrator. I mean, he talked about that eyeball a lot. It makes me wonder what it looked like. I mean, did it just look glassy? I mean, my aunt she can't see out of one of her eyes, and it was because she fell on like a piece of farm equipment when she was younger, and it just went straight through her eyeball. And so it looks like it's just a foggy eyeball, and you can't really see the iris and the pupil too much. It's just kind of grayish. And I wonder if it kind of looks like that. I don't know, maybe. Also, you have that the narrator watched the old man as he slept, and the narrator kept asking the audience if they thought he was mad. And mad means crazy, not angry, but it meant crazy. And you know, when somebody questions their sanity that much, and they keep reinforcing that they're not crazy, they're probably crazy. It's kind of like normally the one who is the loudest when it comes to the matter of lying. Well, I didn't lie. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Normally, it's the liar. So it's the same thing with this. The person who keeps reassuring that he is not crazy. You may think I'm mad, but I'm really not. I promise I'm not mad. Yeah, you probably are. So that in itself was a huge foreshadowing tactic. Any questions about this, please refer to the substitute, or you can ask me tomorrow when I return. You should have a few minutes left, and what I would like you to do for these last few minutes is for you to open up your binder and make sure that your mini lesson for today is at the end of your mini lesson section, please. And once you have that done, I need you to go through and I need you to organize your binders. I know some of you have a perfect binder. Others of you do not. So what I would like you to do for the rest of the class, because you probably only have a few minutes, I would like everybody as a group at your table groups to open their binders and go page by page and say, okay, I have this next after this tab. What do you have? And if you see somebody in your group doesn't have something that's right, have them change it. So please do that for the rest of the class period. I hope that you behaved well, because if I get a good behavior note from the substitute, then I will add more points to your total. And this Friday is the cutoff date for your 40 points. So fingers crossed, you have a good note left, and I will see you darlings tomorrow. Bye.